Hello everybody, welcome back to another video. I'm hoping you guys are all having a fantastic day. So in today's video, as you can tell by the title, we will be talking about this large storm system that is currently barreling across the Northeast. It is not a a massive storm for a nor'easter. I mean, some nor'easters that have occurred in the past years are massive, obviously, right? 3 feet plus could fall in some locations with those storms. This one, it's a big storm, but for a nor'easter, let's just say it's on a lower end of kind of a massive storm. It's more of a medium-sized nor'easter. Though I do want to say that based off the title, you can tell there are some big forecast changes that have occurred, and that mainly is in the positive side if you want snow. Some big snowfall changes. I think that many more locations will get a lot more heavier snow than others. Or really just overall, I think a lot more locations will get heavier snow. If you do recall, yesterday I was mentioning how a lot of these snowfall totals from the National Weather Service are kind of underplayed, at least at that given time they were, I thought, and that was true. The snowfall forecast did end up being quite a bit higher than what they were forecast just, 24 hours prior to the event. But again, the National Weather Service did adjust those accordingly, even in the evening when I checked areas like Nashville. They were expected to see 2 to 3 inches based off yesterday's forecast on my video. You could go back and see. And then based on the snowfall reports, they got in some locations over 6 inches across the Nashville area, even some localized 8-inch amounts. So again, this was quite a achiever, and you can see those 2-inch amounts. That's from early on in the morning, as we have those 7 and 6 and 8-inch amounts later in the afternoon. And I do think that this trend did continue to Kentucky. You could see a widespread area of 6 to 8 inches mainly. Charleston already getting towards those, especially west of Charleston. We're seeing up to 7 inches already, and some of these snowfall rates are downright impressive. So notice that the snow moved into Charleston a bit after around noon. You can see at 1 p.m. here it was already snowing, and this is Central Standard Time. But look, this thing has very impressive snowfall. It did have some banding, and you can see that we do have a bit of Tennessee in that snowfall as well, still at around 4:30. It was kind of like a low for at least central portions of Tennessee before the back end moved in. And now what we're seeing is a system, very interesting, right? Because notice earlier on there was a pretty decent cold front to this. We had that inflow of moisture. At this point, it is completely detached from any moisture across the ocean. It is just riding along, doing its own thing. Doesn't even any support from any of the, doesn't need any support from the ocean currently, but it will get that support. And I want to show you how that will impact the cities that are still poised to see the system. Notice Pittsburgh seeing some snow right now, at least according to the radar. I don't know how dry or whatnot the atmosphere is, so not all of that may be reaching the ground. But definitely in those heavier pockets, the snow is falling. Harrisburg, southern Pennsylvania. And now let's start forecasting and putting this into the future. But before we do that, I just want to say that if you guys are new to this channel, hello and welcome. Right, I do talk about the weather. I'm a weather enthusiast. I'm a hobbyist. So if you do enjoy this video at any point, consider subscribing, consider liking the video. It helps out a ton. And if you have any comments or concerns, please leave them down below. I do want to mention that the lake effect is also very impressive. For example, look at Buffalo. The winds are set up in such a fashion that they are pretty much completely running with along the whole, length of Lake Erie. And look, we see a lot of snow into Buffalo right now. This band of snow is very, very potent. There are some areas that are receiving 2 to 3 inches of snow per hour. Likewise, off of Lake Ontario, though notice that band is a bit weaker, as it's not, again, with that wind direction. It's almost like two bands developing into a more widespread but lighter snow event. Off Lake Michigan, we do have some that were actually affecting much of Green Bay area earlier on today, as the winds were a bit more northeast. But throughout the day, you could see those did turn a bit towards this northwest, and now they're completely north and west, expecting to drop quite a bit of snow here on the areas that will get impacted. And of course, we have another system moving in onto the west coast. You could see a lot of rain right there across Washington, and we did have some impressive snowfall totals from that snow system yesterday across the west. Last 24 hours, you could see some very good amounts across Colorado right there and into Wyoming, and also decent amounts right there into the Cascades. This is a bit slow, but notice that the lake effect did pile up quite a bit as well across the UP, mainland Michigan, and into portions now of, again, New York and upstate New York. So, again, look at that right there. Thomas, West Virginia, already reporting 8 inches, and I guarantee you by the time this thing is done, which it's still a bit away from being done there could be amounts over a foot and a half across Thomas, for example, that already have 8 inches. Let's track this forward, and I want to kind of show you what will happen next. A lot of people that got snow are already happy with it, right? But you still might want to see how this thing progresses, and kind of, what it means for your I guess fellow snowstorm buddies are gonna receive it as well. That's kind of a weird way to put it, but notice it is still lingering across Kentucky. It's gonna let up in just a few hours if it hasn't already. By the time I upload this video, it might be already stopping, but notice right now West Virginia is in the crosshairs of seeing this beast. It's seeing the heaviest by far. Notice this does spread into Pennsylvania, even southern New York. And look, that rain, the absence of rain, it does eat into the snowfall amounts for, say, Virginia or Maryland or Delaware. So, where it is cold enough to see that snow, or it will be, but there's just no precipitation. As the snow is further towards the north, the rain moisture is just not there yet, and it kind of eats it away. Do note, though, that the increase from the precip across the ocean does occur. We do see the heavy snow spread into Pennsylvania, now into New York City by 12 a.m. Even though it's snowing almost into Boston by that same time frame, it's just barely reaching New York City because of this orientation of the system. It's the snow band is kind of off the coast, and for example, Maryland, where you'll be missing out on its snow up until around midnight, maybe 1 a.m., 2 a.m., and then once it does start snowing, it'll start snowing pretty heavily for a few hours. But then look at that, New York City getting in on some of that. Again, while it snows, it's going to be heavy, but cities like Boston are just going to see this maximized for them, and kind of further, they're just pretty much north of Connecticut, because notice again, there's that snow shield, it mixes with that rain shield, and anything north of this area, really New York City, is going to see those maximized snowfall amounts. And again, you can see Boston starts snowing early morning hours, right? You're commuting to work on a Friday, very unfortunate, but an impactful storm. Notice it's pushing out of New York by 8 a.m., but all across the eastern seaboard, Connecticut, Rhode Island, Massachusetts, Vermont, Maine, especially Maine, just seeing snow well into the noon hour. And this takes us just through 11 a.m. So the total snowfall, let's just see what it shows through this time frame. Again, this may not seem like a lot of snow here, and I'll explain why I pulled up this image, or the Midwest, because, well, I wanted to show you the lake effect, and you can see that it's pretty significant across some of these locations, especially across Lake Michigan. But notice, as I mentioned, there are some locations already reporting 8 inches across West Virginia. Maybe most have around 6, where I guess in this area. Another 6 to 5, 8, I mean, that could equal over a foot and a half of snow in total, which is way more than what they predicted. But again, the system has kind of already have a few surprises with it. I do want to say that this is a bit of a low snowfall ratio for especially the areas further north, meaning it will be more fluffy. The snow won't be as wet. Now I guess that's pretty good for these coastal areas, but I do think that New York City could walk away with this thing with a bit more than what this model shows. This one shows 3 to 5 inches. It could be even more than that. I think there could be plenty of locations getting towards that 6 to 8 inch range across these areas, especially across Pennsylvania and northern New Jersey. But there may be some decent amounts, especially across southern New Jersey. There's looking more and more likely that there's a pretty heavy band of snow right there that develops. Again, Massachusetts, Boston, picking up quite a bit of snow. I think the snowfall ratios will be higher, so this isn't too accurate. And it only, unfortunately, takes us out through 18 hours, so it doesn't show the full length of the storm for Maine. We do have a new model run coming in, but it's only 10 hours out, so I could show you the 18Z, which is a bit older. That's why it's higher amounts over here, because a lot of that, since this model came out, has already occurred. But let me just bring this forward and show you what this model showed. Yeah, you can see that the HER model definitely ends up showing a lot for Boston. I think there will be widespread amounts of 6 plus. I would say 6 to 10, maybe even 6 to 12 is more likely for the coastal areas. Same thing with Maine. And again, the snowfall ratios will be a bit higher than what this model shows, because it's assuming a 10 to 1. And let me just take a look at some other models, assuming again a 10 to 1 ratio. So you can see the NAM shows a lot of snow. Definitely a aggressive scenario. You can see shows still a lot across Virginia, and this did come out at around 4 p.m. today Central Time, so 3 p.m. So again, a lot of that has already fallen here. but not up towards the north. And again, the models have been slowly trending more and more aggressively. This model came out today at noon, and you can see it really did a very bad job of what happened across Kentucky, West Virginia. So I'm just gonna ignore this model pretty much at this point, and only go on the ones that kind of ended up doing a good job with the current situation that's unfolding. This model is still coming in, the 18Z, so we don't really have much to look at there. And again, I don't want to look at too old of a model run because this stuff has changed so quickly and so fast that by so much that even an older model run by a few hours is just too old to look at. But yeah, notice that this thing is very, very again, snow. A good potential for snow. This is a Canadian high res. It's a good model. Let's see how it evolves the system. Again, there's that heavy snow. Shows quite a bit, right? Everything seems accurate. I do think some of the snow and rain interaction is a bit ahead of schedule. I don't think it will interact that quickly as this model shows, but we'll have to wait and see. And then you can see it does show quite a bit of snow across the Northeast. Again, those amounts supporting 6 to 10 inches across even the coastal areas. And New York City itself, I would say 4 to 6, even 7-inch amounts are possible. And I do want to show you a few other models, Canadian. So I showed you the high-res version of this. Let's just take a look at the the global model. And again, you can see it shows a lot across Tennessee, Kentucky. This did come out at midnight today, or noon, so this is a bit out of date, and this has already occurred. Again, some of these snowfall amounts are quite a bit higher, and at 6 o'clock, this system was just starting to occur across Kentucky, and based on the snowfall amounts, you can see they're in that 9-inch range for some of those locations. So again, Canadian probably underplaying, or did underplay a lot of these amounts, so I'm pretty much just going to straight up assume that a lot of these amounts are also underplayed, with again, not including that the snowfall ratio is a bit lower. So let's take a look at the National Weather Service, and I want to show you the kind of large area of advisories and warnings. Notice West Virginia, almost all of it's under a winter storm warning. Again, they have pretty moderate to heavy snow across Charleston right now. Total 3 to 7. I would not be surprised, again, as we already have 8-inch amounts across some of these locations, that you'll see, maybe even 8 to 12 is a more accurate estimation. And do notice that the further north you get towards that state, it gets quite a bit more aggressive. And yeah, you could see right there we do have those pretty good snowfall amounts. I want to take a look at where that one snowfall amount is. Okay, so that's Thomas, West Virginia. Here's Charleston, so that's bordering Maryland. And so that's like right there, Thomas. And I'm assuming, yeah, it's already 8 inches, so that thing's going to overperform. Let's take a look if we can find Thomas. Yeah, just 5 miles northwest. Yeah, 6 to 10. You can see quite a bit more snow, but I think at this point, even 10 inches is going to be an underestimate for that location. Southern New Jersey, you could see, is seeing a winter storm warning. Further north, not really, but again, this is all pretty trivial. I would assume that, honestly, most of these areas will see enough snow to kind of get a winter storm warning. I don't think they'll issue one, but, I think that 4 to 6 inch range could extend well into New York City. And of course, the amounts of snow really explode across portions of the Northeast. Some pockets, as you can see, up to 10 inches. Based on the system and how it's going, I would not be surprised to see many amounts over a foot across Boston, especially Massachusetts, especially northern Massachusetts. And then Maine right here is the highest of the highest. And you can see they even issued some blizzard warnings because of the strong winds. So truly a nor'easter for these areas with up to 14, 15, 16 inches. I would not be surprised if that again does occur. I do want to note again the lake effect is going very significant off these lakes. I mean, it's seriously just starting to go full force, if you will, across just south of Niagara Falls and into the Buffalo area. You can see 3 to 7. Tomorrow, a bit of a let up, but then recurring chances later on, but that's not really the lake effect. And of course, behind the system, driving this whole thing is a spearhead of very cold air. Notice how it really just narrowly avoids the areas by the lake, but goes pretty far south into Illinois. I mean, Springfield, Illinois, right? Central Illinois, pretty and that's not really the north, and you can see they're pretty darn cold, so it's also a pretty dangerous cold mass of air. And towards the north, where it's the coldest, these temperatures are just going to be brutal. Negative 34, folks. That is just something you do not want to mess around with. And again, of course, you guys are seeing that winter storm. So let me quickly now show you the European model and those accurate snowfall ratios. So this is the website that I wanted to pull up and show you the European model on, because the other model or website that I was using doesn't have the European. Let's see how it tracks the system. Again, boom right there. That already occurred. This did come out at noon today. So again, some of this data is already a bit old, if you will, dated. Notice it shows on a restart, spins it away, and it is out of here. Boom. So that is it. So let's just see what that total snowfall accumulation is, assuming a 10-to-1 ratio. And let's just click at 78 hours out. Again, did a pretty good job with Kentucky, Tennessee. Though again, some of these amounts still underestimated, even with a more aggressive scenario like this model. And I notice at the Northeast, again, it has some decent amounts, but I still think those will be a bit higher. So really, all the models did show a pretty similar forecast. Nothing that was a relevation, if you will, from these models. Let's see if we could take a look at those accurate snowfall ratios, and you could see quite a bit more across Kentucky, Tennessee, which was more realistic of what did happen from the Canadian. It doesn't really show higher ratios up here. I'm assuming it's just a wetter snowfall, but again, even so, I do think some of these amounts are still underdone by the Canadian model. The GFS, I did show you this model earlier, but I didn't show you the more accurate snowfall ratios, if you will. You can see, 3, 4, 5 inches here. And again, I do think that the biggest limiting factor across the New York area is that this will just be a way wetter snow. And over here is way colder, which is why the ratios compared to a 10-to-1 really increase the snowfall here. But for New York, they just kind of keep it the same. They do increase, though, that snow for areas like Massachusetts, Boston, Connecticut, Rhode Island, and into portions of Maine as it gets a bit cooler. This is actually the noon one. Let's see the evening one. Yeah, you can see the amounts did increase with that Cuchero. So again, you can see even with new sets of model data coming in right now, we still are seeing a strengthening storm. So again, don't be surprised to see over 10 inches across Massachusetts, Boston, maybe even close towards a foot. In New York City, you couldn't see some locations getting towards that 6-inch range, which again is rather impressive, assuming yesterday at the same time frame they only had 2 inches forecasted. Quite a change. RAP model, it's a very good high resolution model, similar to the HER. And now I can show you what this one shows. Again, shows a lot across West Virginia right there, and again, that does seem pretty likely over a foot, as you saw with Thomas, West Virginia there. Again, it shows around 5 to 6 inches for New York, 4 to 6. I think that's possible, and it shows decent amounts across Massachusetts, with again Maine picking up quite a bit as well. But yeah, that's basically it. That's all I wanted to really show you. The United Kingdom model, it only has a 10-to-1 ratio, so again, not that accurate, but you can see it has a similar track at least of snowfall. Notice Canadian, let's just go back to the National Weather Service now, and let's take a look at the Philadelphia office, State College, and see those snowfall amounts. You can see 2 to 3 for State College, 4 to 6 towards the south and west especially. Let's take a look at, say, Pittsburgh's Office of Weather and see what they are showing. And again, they're not under winter weather advisory, but based on how the system has developed, there might be a bit more than just 1 inch, maybe closer towards 3 or 4, especially just south of the city. You can see those winter storm warnings right there. These areas are just getting absolutely pounded, if you will. And yeah, the lake effect is definitely impressive across portions of the lakes, with a good amount of snow, with locally 12 inches plus across southwestern Michigan. And then notice across the Northwest, we do have winter storm warnings. We have all sorts of advisories for rain, flooding. And if you were to take a look at some of these just random areas that I'm clicking on for the forecast, you can see a lot of snow, 3 to 5, 6 to 10, 3 to 5. That's quite a bit of snow in such a short amount of time. And yeah, you can see that it's obviously they're mentioning that the mountains are going to be seeing some pretty incredible snowfall amounts. And yeah, they already have seen a lot of snow, as you saw in the snowfall reports. And they're just going to continue seeing more across the west. So that is good news. They're kind of still dealing with those drought conditions across many of those areas, so they'll take that. And then notice, yeah, it's already almost 1.5 inches right there. Martinsburg, West Virginia, which is really just almost, just northwest of Washington by, I guess, a few hundred miles, maybe, not even. And yeah, that's just what I wanted to show you. I think it'll be really cool to see these snowfall amounts coming, and you could actually see where this storm took its track. Really dumped a lot of snow here, and you could see how it weakened across Missouri, right? There was kind of a lull in that intensity, weakened throughout Kansas, didn't really do much, and then boom, it exploded into Kentucky and Tennessee, and now again it'll continue its track of heavy intensity snow. Alright, that is basically it. Thank you guys so much for watching, and I'll catch you all on the next episode. There it is. Look at that. See ya. Bye.